revolution somehow. And love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for June 24th, 2017. It's a Saturday, a rather rainy Saturday here at Cheonryugung. And I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Cheonryugung, Hyungjin Moon. And I'll be joined by some wonderful guests a little later on. But right now, let's go to the weather. It's 72 degrees and raining right now at Cheonryugung, and today we're expecting to get up to 84 degrees. But the daytime, it's going to be much better. The rain is going to end in the morning, and it's going to be mostly sunny today. And then tomorrow, Sunday, we're expected to get up to 80 degrees. And in fact, tomorrow, Monday, and Tuesday, and I think until Wednesday, we're going to have some rather cool temperatures, more like September temperatures here in this area. Always on Saturday, we go through this article that AccuWeather puts up about a wrap-up of major weather events during the past week. So let's do that. Tropical storm Cindy lashed the southern United States this week, spawning tornadoes and leaving some communities underwater. Cindy made landfall as a tropical storm around 3 a.m. Central Daylight Time Thursday near the Texas-Louisiana border. One death was attributed to the storm when a 10-year-old boy was struck and killed when a large wave came ashore near a waterfront condo in Fort Morgan, Alabama on Wednesday. Many roads were closed in parts of the Deep South due to the flooding, including around Mobile, Alabama area on Thursday. There were also several reports of tornadoes and waterspouts on Thursday. A damaging tornado swept through the Birmingham, Alabama region. 4 people were injured. At least 10 people suffered injuries while aboard a United Airlines jet as the plane traveled from Panama to Houston on Tuesday. According to the Associated Press, a Federal Aviation Administration spokesman said the plane encountered the turbulence about 80 miles east of Cancun, Mexico. Satellite images showed storm clouds in the area in the wake of Cindy. And also, Tropical Storm Brett formed in the southern part of Caribbean Sea on Monday, becoming the earliest named storm to form in this part of the Atlantic since the official records were kept in 1851. The system slammed the Windward Islands with heavy rain and strong winds. Intense heat swelled over the southwestern U.S. this week, halting flights at Phoenix International Airport. On Tuesday, a high of 119 degrees Fahrenheit broke a daily record in Phoenix. Flights were canceled as temperatures were too high for planes to operate. The local National Weather Service office encouraged people to find a place with air conditioning and to avoid outdoor activities. As the hot, dry conditions continue to envelop the western U.S., several large wildfires continue to advance and threaten communities. The Bryan Head Fire, which began on June 17th near the town of Bryan Head, Utah, has burned more than 17,200 acres and is only 5% contained as of Friday morning. The cause of the fire has not been determined. The Salt Lake Tribune reported that the blaze doubled in size overnight on Thursday thanks to strong winds. The wildfire was threatening 400 cabins near Panguitch Lake, and evacuations have been ordered for Bryan Head and several other nearby communities. In California, a grass fire about 40 acres in size burned 4 homes near the town of Vallejo on Thursday afternoon. The impacted homes suffered damage, but their structures remained intact. Meanwhile, temperatures broke records across the Atlantic Ocean in the United Kingdom as England and Wales experienced the longest June heat wave in 41 years. The temperature hit 94.1 degrees Fahrenheit or 34.5 degrees C in London, marking the hottest June day since 1976, according to the Met Office. Temperatures soared to 88 degrees Fahrenheit, 31 C at Glastonbury on Wednesday, reportedly making it the hottest day of the music festival's history. Paramedics treated dozens of festival goers for heat-related ailments. want to offer condolences to this family of this 10-year-old boy who was killed in the tropical storm Cindy. Very sad, I'm sure. I want to go to my Rima for today. I want to go to the Cheonseonggyung first. Let's see, we're in Book 8, Sin and Restoration Through Indemnity, Chapter 2, The Internal Meaning of Sin and the Human Fall, and these were words spoken in 1988. Who is Satan? He is an adulterer of God's love. God had to let the enemy Satan embrace Eve. He had to listen to Satan's accusations 10,000 times, and yet he had to love him. That has been God's position. You have no idea how difficult God's situation is, have you? You should know that God's position is even more difficult than the position of a man who had to let his beloved wife be embraced by his enemy and yet had to pray for that enemy's happiness. Would you all be able to do that? This morning in looking for and choosing my, sometimes you choose a Rima and you just feel it makes no sense. So you try to choose another one. God, give me another one. But two things happen then. One is that the second one also makes no sense, or that the second one says pretty much the same thing as the first one. And well, let me read you what I got this morning. I tried to avoid this, but I'm going back to it. In the book of Judges, chapter 21, starting at verse 13. And this is, the setting here is that there was a civil war within Israel. And basically as a result of this civil war, the tribe of Benjamin came very close to being wiped out by the other tribes. But then at some point they said, well, let's not wipe them all out because God gave us 12 tribes and we don't want to we have to we don't want to completely wipe them out. We want to keep the 12. And so then they had a problem, though, that in order to maintain the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin needed a lot more women to be the wives of their young men. As in the Civil War, a lot of the women of Benjamin had been wiped out. But the other tribes had sworn an oath when they began the war not to give their daughters to a Benjaminite. So how to solve this dilemma? On the one hand, we got to give them women. On the other hand, we swore an oath that we would not. So anyway, let's see what happens. Then the whole congregation sent word to the children of Benjamin who were at the rock of Rimmon and announced peace to them. So Benjamin came back at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and they had not found enough for them. So in order to find the women, they attacked this other tribe called Jabesh Gilead and took their women, and they took 400. Problem was that there were 600 men in the Benjamin tribe, and so they were still short 200. And the people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a void in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, "What shall we do for the wives of those who remain, since the women of Benjamin have been destroyed?" And they said, "There must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe may not be destroyed from Israel. However, we cannot give them wives from our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn an oath, saying, 'Cursed be the one who gives a wife to Benjamin.'" Then they said, in fact, and they have an idea. A light goes off in somebody's mind. I've got a good idea. Then they said, in fact, there is a yearly feast of the Lord in Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem and south of Lebanon. Therefore they instructed the children of Benjamin, saying, Go, lie in wait at the vineyards, and watch. And just when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, then come out from the vineyards, and every man catch a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh. Then go to the land of Benjamin. Then it shall be when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we will say to them, Be kind to them for our sakes, because we did not take a wife for any of them in the war. For it is not as though you have given the women to them at this time, making yourselves guilty of your oath. So,
Yeah.
guilty of your oath. And the children of Benjamin did so. They took enough wives for their number, from whom those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. So the children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family. They went out from there, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So that's a rather strange passage, wouldn't you say, in the Old Testament? I don't know if I've ever come across this until now, where so Shiloh apparently had not sent troops to fight Benjamin, and so they say, well, they've got women. Why don't you go up and take their women? Because they're saying, well, if they're being kidnapped, you're not exactly giving them to the Benjaminites, so you're not really breaking your oath. So this kind of justification was created in order to give the Benjaminites the number of women who would match the number of unmarried men, and so that they could have children and continue the tribe of Benjamin. Of course, eventually, when Israel was divided into north and south, then of course Benjamin and Judah were the two tribes that continued in God's tradition, and the other 10 tribes did not. So it's interesting that the tribe of Benjamin was saved from extinction at this time in this way. I guess what I get from here is that you have to have wives, and you have to have women in order to continue your inheritance, and so God provides for that. We have as our guests this morning Bill Brunhofer and Jamal Johnson. Do either of you have any thoughts on this passage? I'm a little bit at a loss.
Well, I remember Father calling us thieves. You know, the greatest thing about the blessing is that you're giving somebody instead of having to like scheme. You know, win their heart, steal them out from under their parents. You know, emotionally, and then forcing the parents to swallow it. You know, maybe they don't like you, but you know, the way of the world is, you know, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that Cupid, you know, signed off on it. And so when I hear about taking people's daughters, I'm reminded of Father calling us thieves.
Of course, in the blessing, there were 3 types of couples, even in the 36 couples. In fact, even in the 3 disciples, the 3 original disciples. One was the established couples who were already married, and Wampil Kim's couple, of course, was the representation of that. In fact, it was Father who married him in the 50s before he started giving the holy blessing. Wampil Kim wanted to get married, and so Father said, yeah, okay, and then had him marry, and then later on, when Father started giving the holy blessing, he blessed the Wonpa Kim's couple as an established couple, and they became sort of the first and sort of representative couple. And in fact, 12 of the 36 couples were such couples. And then the second type was actually the type that you kind of alluded to now, where the two people, man and woman, sort of were not married, but they sort of had feelings for each other, I guess. And maybe that's and they chose each other, but they were not yet married. And Reverend Yu Hyo-won, the first president of the HSA-UWC, and Mrs. Sa Gyu-cha, Mrs. Yu, they were within the first three disciples, they were the couple that were that way. And then, of course, then the ones that where Father actually chose them without, any kind of, without their, well, I guess they knew each other, but they without any sort of feelings or anything like that. That was, within the three disciples was Reverend Young-hee Kim. And then also, and then within the 36 couples, there were 12, 12, and 12 of these three types. And we, what was it? Some time ago, we read this passage of Paul in Romans 11, I think, where he encourages people to remain sexually pure, and said he himself was going to remain sexually pure until Jesus comes. But then he said that if you can't, then where was that?
Right, go get married.
Yeah.
It's better to get married than to burn.
Then to burn, yeah.
Burn in lust.
Yeah. In fact, I see here that Paul was a member of the tribe of Benjamin. I happen to see that in Romans chapter 11, verse 1. Yeah. So interesting that eventually the tribe of Benjamin gave birth to the Apostle Paul. Yeah. All right, let's take a break, and then I'll come back then and start going through the news of the day with Jamal and Bill from a Chunyu perspective. See you in a minute.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for June 24th, a Saturday. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheonryuguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Bill Brunhofer and Jamal Johnson. And Bill had some thoughts that I cut him off. So, Bill, why don't you go ahead and
Well, I wasn't
speak?
fast enough on, sure enough on my feet to jump in there, but two things. Just that point that you made, Tim, on the last reading in Judges, that that point you made about God taking care of his people and the tribe of Benjamin and the shortage of women. So the story tells us how women were provided to them so they could continue their families and their tribe. And one is that, Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount, seek ye first God's kingdom and all these things will come to you. And as the tribe was faithful, then God provided for the tribe what their needs were. The other thing you mentioned at the end of that verse was the idea that everyone does what is good in their own eyes. And then there's two ways to take that. One is relativism, but the other, in the context of God's kingdom, and when people do exercise their lives in a faithful way with the idea of seeking God's kingdom first, then it does open the door for people to make choices and be co-creators. So there's that aspect of it too that I was thinking. So one is, it's like good can cut either way in making choices. So in seeking God's kingdom, doorways open for us to be good choosers in our life and have responsibility and be a co-creator and be accountable for those choices too.
Yeah, I think, all things added to you.
Yeah.
Well, you have to kind of like look at a woman as a thing, right? To apply it to taking these women for these men, right? So how could you do that unless you saw people outside of the covenant lineage, right, as sort of like having less importance, sort of? So God had that kind of lesser regard for the people around Israel. Sometimes he said wipe them all out, right, when they were fighting, because maybe they were of a really satanic bloodline, or so it's a really tough call for most people that care about people, care about the idea that women are not things, that we're actually taking these people, but we're taking them for a good reason. We're taking them to live for a better lineage than what they were living for before.
Yeah, God wants to fulfill his purpose, to reclaim everything.
That's tough.
To reclaim everything and take everything back from Satan.
Well, eventually it's for the salvation of the entire world, and for that purpose God is trying to create a foundation to send the Messiah, and is preparing through the people of Israel. He's preparing that foundation, and especially as it turns out through the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, are the two tribes that eventually prepare that foundation.
That's deep.
It's interesting to me that Jesus was came from the tribe of Judah. I don't know about the 12 disciples where their tribes were, but Paul says that he was a member of the tribe of Benjamin. So. All right, shall we start going through the news? All right. And the Drudge, the top headline is that refugees to U.S. Cut in half. This is comparing the first 3 months of the Trump administration to the last 3 months of the Obama administration. Of course, at the end of the Obama administration, there was a kind of a rush, and there's some. But anyway, still, even if you compare it to the year before, there's still a decrease in the Trump administration. The LA Times says the number of refugees admitted to the United States was cut by nearly half in the first 3 months of the Trump administration compared with the final 3 months of the Obama presidency, reflecting the new president's skepticism towards immigration. The government statistics released Friday show that more than 25,000 refugees were permitted to enter and reside in the United States at the end of the Obama administration. In the initial months under President Trump, the number fell to 13,000. So I think some people who were going to come a little bit later, wanted to speed up their process to get in before Trump was inaugurated. I'm sure that was true. The statistics were released by the Department of Homeland Security based on information supplied by the State Department. Countries of origin were largely unchanged in both periods. 2/3 of the arrivals came from 5 countries, the DR Congo, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, and Myanmar. Refugees from 2 of those countries, Syria and Somalia, would have been banned under Trump's executive order against entries from certain Muslim-majority nations, but federal courts have blocked the order. And that's right now before the Supreme Court, and we're expecting an action from the Supreme Court pretty much any day because their term ends at the end of the month, a week from now, and it's not necessarily they don't have to, but many media sources are expecting that they will do something about that during the coming week. Trump's original order covered Iraqis as well, but omitted Iraq from his revised order. The data suggests that the Obama administration, as it was about to turn over power to Trump, significantly stepped up the number of refugees admitted. Arrivals in the first 3 months reflected a 86% year over year. In the final 3 months of Obama, reflected an 86% year over year increase compared with the same period the previous year. In Trump's first 3 months, arrivals were 12% lower than for the same period in the previous year. I think if you take the 2 periods together, 6 months, and then compare that to the same period in the previous year, it sounds to me that there's not that much of a change. Just within that 6 months, people were sort of bunched together in the first 3 months. That's.
And I've read some things, Tim, that confirm what you just said. That there hasn't been too much of a change. I've seen an article where they claim that there's actually more refugee immigration coming in because such momentum was built in bringing them in that you can't just turn an aircraft carrier around. You can't just spin it.
Close the door. Put up the close sign. I don't know.
but it was a process that was underway. It would take a little time to stem the tide. But it is interesting with the months that's passed. You would also think that Trump's administration would be working on setting up a new set of criteria.
But remember that
the
bureaucrats were actually handling this. The bureaucrats are actually handling this. Are not Trump supporters in most cases. Yeah. And they're the same people who were working under Obama. So I don't know if they've tried to intentionally reduce the number of refugees. I just think the refugees themselves were trying to get in here as quickly as possible before the change in administration. Anyway, we don't know. We'd have to go and interview all 25,000 refugees to find out what was going on there. Yeah. But anyway, that is the top headline there. And this morning, I wanted to go through the. Are you following the health insurance situation at all? Obamacare repeal and replace situation?
Yes,
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in that. I don't know how other people feel. But California, of course, is trying to create what they call a single payer system, which is single payer being the government, which is what many countries in Europe have, and also I guess in Japan and Korea these countries have, which is basically a socialized medicine. But they've come up on a big stumbling block. They can't find the money. Can't find enough of other people's money. And so California has been pushing this. The legislature in California has been pushing this, but they yesterday the speaker had to acknowledge that this wasn't going to work, and so he basically tabled the bill. He says. Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon put the brakes on a sweeping plan to overhaul the health care market in California Friday, calling the bill woefully incomplete. Rendon announced plans to park the bill to create a government-run universal health care system in Assembly Rules Committee until further notice and give senators time to fill in holes that the bill does not currently address.
I don't know why we have to talk about health care as if we don't know. As if we don't understand. And I think I think we talk as if it's not settled because people are whining about being judged for the stupidity of it. You know, it's simple. You know, people who have to shop are going to try to save money, and if they don't have to do any shopping, right? If somebody else is paying for it. Yeah, it's filet mignon every night, right?
Right.
You throw half the filet mignon in the garbage, right? Because you're not the one paying for it. So that just by itself, okay, you can see is driving up the cost of healthcare, okay? Because the government is non-local entity is paying for it. You don't care about its bottom line because it's not you. It's not really your best friend. You're not married to it, right? So if it suffers. Right, and especially if you're not a taxpayer, right? So you're just gonna drive up. You got a hangnail. You're gonna go $1,500 to the emergency room. You just because you're not shopping. I mean, everybody knows that. It's a done deal. You know, you should bring in more free market, and I think they had the problem with the states, right? You couldn't. Compete across state lines if you were an insurer, right?
Yeah. So insurance companies are pulling out of many counties in many states. Now, Rand Paul says that healthcare, some people should be able to get healthcare for as little as $1 a day. He says, for at least some consumers, that should be possible. And he's criticizing the current healthcare bill in the Senate as saying that it's just propping up insurance companies. Rand Paul yesterday saying, what I'd like to do is legalize inexpensive insurance, and you should be able to get insurance for $1 a day. I mean, you really should, he said on MSNBC. Rand Paul on MSNBC, that must have been interesting. The insurance companies make all the money. All of this is predicated upon still propping up the insurance companies. So yeah, they're talking about giving $15 billion to insurance companies to stabilize the insurance market. Paul's comments came a day after Republican leaders in the Senate unveiled their highly anticipated plan to repeal and replace large parts of the Obama's Affordable Care Act. Paul is one of 4 conservative senators to announce their opposition to the bill. Paul and 3 other lawmakers largely object because they believe the Senate bill would not do enough to lower premium costs and that it would leave much of Obamacare in place. Senate GOP leaders can only afford to lose 2 votes with their 52-member majority.
And I heard another senator, Tim, joined the 4.
Right, there's a 5th,
Yesterday
yes.
there was an article about him, and I think he's complaining that it's not supporting Medicare sufficiently. Is his main thrust of his complaint, and it should continue to support it as it has, and even I heard a critique of his response that it should expand Medicare, which is going the opposite way to what that legislation purports to do.
Yeah, I think you're referring to Republican Senator Dean Heller of Nevada.
Yeah.
Because he says he opposes the current Republican plan as it's going to be very difficult to get me to yes, said Heller, billed as the Senate Republican most at risk in the 2018 midterm election. So he has a difficult election coming up next year, apparently.
Yeah.
He became the 5th GOP senator to say he won't vote for the measure in its current form. The proposal's cuts to Medicare and subsidies for individual insurance coverage are too tough on Nevada residents, Heller said. Like you said, he doesn't like the cuts to Medicaid.
Yeah.
Heller said at a news conference with Nevada governor, without significant changes in the proposal, the senator said he'll vote with Democrats to block it from reaching the Senate floor. I cannot support a piece of legislation that takes insurance away from tens of millions of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Nevadans, Heller said. Sandoval, a Republican who accepted Obamacare's Medicaid expansion in his state, said about 210,000 people gained health coverage under the law. They're living healthier and happier lives because of that decision, he said. But this is people are digging the hole deeper, aren't they? I mean, the first rule in a crisis management is if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. But from what I can see, though, that people are still digging. We've already seen how Puerto Rico and now Illinois are in a serious trouble, and actually, apparently, there are states even more greater financial difficulty than Illinois, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and Massachusetts. And so, and a big part of that is this health insurance thing, because somehow people have gotten it into their minds that health insurance is a right, an inalienable right, I guess, and they want the government to pay for it. Trouble is, government only has other people's money, and eventually it runs out of that money. And Illinois has run out, and Connecticut, New Jersey, and Massachusetts are running out, and Puerto Rico has run out, and other places are running out. The federal government, of course, can just keep on printing money, but eventually that's other people's money too. Because it just devalues the value of the currency that everybody has, and of course the debt just creates more. Debt means that you're taking money from future citizens, future taxpayers. Like Jamal said, the term free market should enter into the conversation, and I don't see it here. People are not talking free market, but. Rand Paul says that people should be able to buy insurance for $1 a day, and I don't see an explanation of where he gets that number, but I suspect that he's talking about free markets because Rand Paul is a libertarian.
I did hear a commentary from Mark Levin last night on the radio, and he said two fundamental things. One is that it is not going to promote free market-driven healthcare, and secondly, that it will, what was the other point? Is that it will continue to drive up costs, and it will lead to a single-payer system. The fundamentals are still set up for it, within it, that they're not willing to take out, that will drive it toward a single-payer system.
And many people have suspected that it was Obama's intention from the beginning to create a system that would fail and force a single-payer system. That was the suspicion from the beginning. But the problem is that to have a single-payer system, you have to have money to do it, because they have to pay for it. And California expects that its single-payer system would cost $400 billion a year. So where is the government going to get that money? I don't think you can raise taxes high enough for them to have that kind of money. Or to print money fast enough to be able to have that kind of thing. So eventually, in single-payer systems in Europe and in Japan are failing, where they don't have the money to pay. And this is part of the problem that Illinois has. It has billions of dollars in Medicaid payments, Medicaid reimbursements that it's not able to make because it doesn't have the money to do it.
You know that walk a mile in the man's moccasins before you judge him? I don't know if that was anyway, you don't want people taking your stuff. If you're a doctor, you want somebody saying, I'm entitled to be repaired by you or healed by you, right? You went and you studied for 30 years or so, right? And you've had a practice for like 5 years, and then somebody comes in and says, they basically enslave you by saying you have to heal me, right? So you studied 20 to 30 years for somebody to tell you that you have no choice in the matter anymore, and I don't think that they actually get in the position of the doctor and think about whether or not that's fair to even think like that. But that's entitlement mentality.
And of course, a part of the problem of medical costs going up is the whole malpractice liability insurance, that kind of thing. So that also enters into it.
And the whole course of this government control is that it's controlling people's behavior and choices in their own care, and it's controlling providers' behavior, like you pointed out, Jamal, and puts restraints on them to practice medicine. And so it takes freedom away from everyone in the name of control and some equality. The other main problem here on the funding is the legislators think they have a blank check forever and ever to spend whatever is necessary because, as they cry and claim, women and children will die if we don't find the money. If we don't have the money, we'll write checks against the future. So in this society, they think they have permission to continue to write checks.
Well, of course, that's not what the
Without any
Democrats are
thought
saying about the GOP bill, that it's going to kill people. And this is what they were saying about the House bill as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said rape, because if you are writing checks against the future, that means that's your baby's butt right there.
Right.
And that baby is on the hook. If you have $50,000 debt the day you're born, okay, how you gonna pay that? Your creditors are gonna come and get it somehow.
And in fact, Hillary Clinton, can we talk about her? Calls the Republicans a death party if health care bill passes. Said, of course, when Obamacare was passed, they were talking about death panels. The Clinton's post was a retweet of a column from the Center of American Progress, a liberal advocacy group, and Harvard researchers that claims roughly 18,000 to 28,000 people could die in 2026 if they were to lose coverage due to the new policy. People will die. That's always a good catchphrase, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, shall we take a break? And we'll come back with other news. Of course, in the Trinidad Constitution, this kind of a problem would not arise because the government's not allowed to get into the whole healthcare mess in the first place. It would be left up to the private sector. Let's take a break, and I'll be back in a minute.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for June 24th, 2017. Has the rain stopped? No, I don't think it has. Still a bit of a rainy Saturday morning. We see still, I think, raindrops falling outside, but we're expecting sunshine later in the day and temperature getting up to, 84, 85, something like that. And then a cooler weekend. And I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Ternukuk, Hyung Jin Moon, and I'm here with Jamal Johnson and Bill Brunhofer. Let's go through some of the headlines here. Pence meets Koch. Court dismisses charges against pro-life activists. These are the two people that took those undercover videos of Planned Parenthood people negotiating prices for baby parts and so forth. And so the California Attorney General charged them with 15 felony counts, but the court has dismissed all but one of those. A TV truck stolen while crew worked on crime story. Whoops. I guess there is crime. They discovered that there is crime, in fact. A universal health care bill stalls in California. We just did that. The paper says the plan is dead. Snapchat maps raise fear of stalking and bullying. New York Times bloodbath could include reporter jobs. So the New York Times is continuing to slim down, continuing to reduce their staff. That's something that's happening with all print media.
Praise God.
Daily cheese auction going electronic. Quad riding Mad Max busted with cache of illegal weapons. Dem officials caught saying, "I'm glad Scalise got shot." That's really amazing. After that terrible incident, there's been a lot of blaming the victim, say he deserved it. There's some people have said that.
Teacher,
Yeah.
isn't it the media driving that whole discussion? So I like the other article about them downsizing.
About downsizing.
What is it? The Times. Oh,
New
yeah.
York Times, yeah.
Yeah, because when remember they had Bush derangement syndrome.
Yes.
And the media drove the recounts. Okay, because they were feeding the public this idea that calling for more recounts is actually rational, and it's actually the will of the majority, and it's a fictitious majority, and they just concoct a majority with an opinion. Because people are social, and they'd rather fit in rather than be uncomfortable. So if you give the appearance of the majority, which is what the media does, they make people move a certain way. They go, "Oh yeah, well maybe another recount actually is really smart, right?" And then like two people in some office in some diabolical news agency are driving the entire country's thinking. And I'm like, you've got to get media literate, people. You've got to understand that your thinking is partially not your thinking. You are borrowing other people's thinking and their reckoning. And if you have somebody kind of jump into that process and pretend that they're sincere, and you buy it and you believe it, and you have no way of judging their character, you are adopting the most sinister people's opinion. And you're also adopting the idea that that's the majority opinion. That's why we need to boycott the news. We need to boycott the news.
Well, rather than boycott the news, let me remind our viewers, who I'm sure were also tuned in yesterday, when we covered a report on WorldTribune.com, how media miscalculation and a fateful decision by New York Times editor destroyed American journalism. And the conclusion of that article is to support the media outlets that you like, because now basically what we have is sort of a breakdown. So instead of
That's called a boycott.
A boycott?
No,
A boycott?
Yeah, boycott.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see. That's of course, now news is available for free, on the internet in many cases, but there are channels, especially on YouTube, that are actively trying to get to paid subscriptions.
So if you go to the Scalise article or the Scalise story, these people are making it seem like it's the majority opinion to be okay with the attempted assassination. To be okay, like, oh, it's normal to wish for the assassination of the president. Most people do. Most people do. So if you're sitting there wishing for it, you're kind of normal. You're kind of normal because most people do. You know, and they color it that way. And you don't think it's diabolical because they're not the one pulling the trigger. You know, but so you'll never punish them. But I will by not buying. I will boycott them. I totally never turn on CNN. I knew a guy. He said, if you don't take CNN out of my cable package, if you don't cut it off at the source, I'm not buying your cable until the cable company took CNN. He doesn't even let it. He said, I want you cut. He said, well, you can block the channel at your box, sir. No, I don't want it blocked at my box. I want you to block it, or I'm not buying your product.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Another thing, this is what you're talking about, Jamal, is normalizing that it's okay to have a feeling about assassinating someone. It's okay to have that feeling because it's authentic. And we live in this time where authenticity to one's feeling is king. Choices, unless it's someone else's choice that you don't agree with, of course. And the other aspect that this connects to, I think, is the idea about the Russia connection and collusion, which is that the strategy and the drumbeat is keep it on the front page, however you can, and by telling people that yes, there is no evidence, but there could be, and that's why we need to continue to investigate. We need a special counsel. There could be. Can you say categorically that there is no, and that never was collusion? No, and therefore there could be. Therefore, we must have an investigation. Rather than what is more logical is if there are no facts to support an investigation, then the investigation ends. That would be logical and rational. However, we live in this irrational paradigm where feelings are king. And what is authentic and what is true is one's feelings about things, not facts.
Well,
isn't that where we live?
Yeah, you're nailing it. Because look at Comey coming out going, she was guilty of this. This was last June, right? She was guilty of this. She was guilty of that. She did this wrong. She did that wrong.
Yeah, and you thought he was going to say she's going to be indicted.
But
she turned the corner
we
went
all
the other
know
way.
It's reasonable for us to let her off the hook. And we won't say it's because she's a girl.
No,
and
we
she's
couldn't
a Democrat.
find intent.
So it's reasonable for us to just let it go. It's like if you know, I mean, oh my gosh, there's no proof about Russia, but it could. It's normal to continue to skepticize, right?
To continue the investigation because it could. There's a possibility, however faint. Therefore,
why wasn't it normal last June to remain skeptical? Why wasn't it normal last June? Why? Why wasn't it normal? Because they told you it wasn't normal last June, and then after the election, they told you it was normal with regards to Russia because they told you it was normal, and you don't realize how and when they told you it was normal. So you don't even take offense. It's like the kid in the back of the room, right? He coerces the other students, right, in the classroom, right, into some kind of outburst or breaking the class rules. The teacher always nails the other kids, never nails the kid that coerces the kids, right? The news is the kid who coerces the other kids. And
that's a good point.
They're like, oh, I didn't do anything. It's time to punish the news.
Let's go for a few other headlines before we break. Border wall misses start date. Apparently in the prototypes or construction of the prototypes in the San Diego area were supposed to begin soon, but nothing's happening on that. Georgia seeing huge decrease in food stamp use. That's great. Family buries wrong person, surprised to discover son still alive. They must have been very surprised. Weekend pride parades and protests. Saudi security forces foil attack on Grand Mosque in Mecca. We can go into that a little bit later. Bomber blows himself up. The end of the Ramadan finally here. TSA agent caught stealing cash from luggage. Her turn. Now Lynch is going to be investigated or going to be interviewed by the Senate. So apparently that's a new normal, I guess. China claims world most powerful submarine detector. More computer glitches, ground Marines, F-35 jets. Freighter was on autopilot when it hit the U.S. destroyer. And the USS Fitzgerald did not detect container ship. There are all sorts of theories going around right now about how that collision took place. This was a collision a few days ago off the coast of Japan between the USS Destroyer and a Philippine-flagged container ship. The container ship was much larger. And, regardless of who's at fault, this isn't supposed to happen. A United States Navy destroyer is not supposed to, is supposed to be able to avoid these kinds of collisions. So how is it possible that it got hit right in the middle of the, broadside, right in the middle, right in the midships on the starboard side? And the 7 sailors unfortunately died as a result of that. And investigations are still continuing on just what happened, especially why was why didn't anyone call for help for an hour? For example, there's many, and there are many YouTube videos up, many theories about what might have happened. Putin reveals laser weapons.
On that point, I heard a sailor, a very experienced sailor, I guess he was an officer, comment on what should have happened aboard the ship. And so he was just looking at both sides of it, but looking at the Navy side. And he said on the Navy side, it happened in the wee hours of the morning when often there are junior officers in positions to oversee the management of the ship, the ship course and all that. I was in the Navy, a helmsman.
You were?
Ships.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I steered ships, and everybody really has to be on their toes. If there's another big ship, you're constantly tracking it anywhere near you.
Well, this is a heavily traveled shipping area.
Traveled, right.
So there's not just one ship in the area. There were many ships in the area.
Right. I've heard it's like a superhighway, and they're like bumper to bumper, so to speak.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're bow to stern, and you just pointed out that the article said that the freighter was found to be on quote autopilot, which is pretty dangerous, particularly when you're in heavy traffic.
Yeah.
But people get complacent in these situations, and it does reveal some sort of complacency. But this sailor said ultimately that Navy ship should have never collided with them. They should have been so on top of what was going on around them that they would have taken countermeasures more quickly. But like you say, when there's so many ships traveling in such close proximity, it can be hard to make a correction.
Well, let's see what Bill Gertz has to say about this.
Yeah.
The deadly collision between a U.S. destroyer and a container ship June 17 took place while the freighter was on autopilot, according to Navy officials. The Philippine-flagged cargo ship ACX Crystal was under control of a computerized navigation system that was steering and guiding the container vessel, according to officials familiar with preliminary results of an ongoing Navy investigation. Investigators so far found no evidence the collision was deliberate. And that's what some people are saying, that it was actually deliberate. This was an act of terrorism. Nevertheless, an accident during computerized navigation raises the possibility the container ship's computer system could have been hacked and the ship deliberately steered into the USS Fitzgerald. A more likely explanation is that collision was a result of an autopilot malfunction or the autopilot's warning signals used to notify the ship's operators were missed. The destroyer was severely damaged, we know about that, 64 miles off the coast of Japan. So commercial ship autopilot systems normally require someone to input manually the course for the ship travel. The computer program then steers the ship by controlling the steering gear to turn the radar, to turn the rudder. But I'm worried about okay, so the freighter we understand, but the Fitzgerald is what I'm curious about. Why did the Fitzgerald, why was the Fitzgerald not able to avoid this collision? And one theory has it, you know, this is a sort of an off-the-wall conspiracy theory, but one theory has it that that the Philippine ship or some other ship nearby was carrying a device that disabled all the electronic systems on the Fitzgerald. Kind of a,
why would you use it under those circumstances? Because now you just exposed that you just exposed the world to a discussion. So then you'd have to say, well, it'd have to have some substantial strategic value at the time, because you just unveiled your entire you know, sneak attack system. Now everybody's aware of it. So now you can't use it when it means something. So it must have actually meant something at the time.
so for the Navy, investigators are trying to determine why the ship's radar and other sensors did not detect the crystal in time to take steps to avoid the collision. The Fitzgerald is equipped with the AN/SPS-64 Advanced Military Navigation Radar, and also uses a commercial radar system to enhance the shipping traffic picture of ships in its vicinity. So I was talking about this with Robert Piquel, who was also in the Navy, and he was pointing out that there are also redundancies. There are always redundancies, right? There's not just one guy looking into a scope, right? There are at least two people there. So it's hard for us to understand how the Fitzgerald could have not known that it was in danger of a collision and taken some actions to avoid that collision.
One of the issues it raises, Tim, is the one of the use of robotics and automated systems to manage movement of, in this case, these two ships and all these ships in highly congested situations. And also you mentioned, what about the two people? One was looking in one scope, one in another scope. How could this have happened? We don't actually know that. Because the automation is, of course, taking people out of the picture, and we put computers, we put technology in their place, and it does raise the issue of you know, of the risk of taking human beings out of the equation. You know, when we leave ourselves at the mercy of technology for not only systems but backups and redundancies, we still take the human out of the equation. We think we're doing something beautiful and amazing because technology is better than people. Is it? It raises that question.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking for a story right now about Tesla.
I was a lookout. I was topside looking at ships with binoculars, and we had other radar. We had redundancy of effort to make sure we know where we are, including the human element. And people topside with binoculars, so we know what's going on. We're not just dependent upon something, some piece of technology that can be hacked, or can go astray, or can be misread.
Yeah, so maybe there was another vessel that our enemies didn't want tracked. So in order to slip it through the region, that's why they staged this. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as a distraction.
Yeah. Well, actually, to take eyes off
Here we go.
of a high value.
So actually, in relation to what Bill was saying, it reminded me of an article that I saw on Reuters about how Tesla, of course, with the automated cars, the self-driving cars, is trying to figure out ways to ensure drivers keep their hands on the wheel. So putting the human element back into it, so as to avoid collisions, and that was interesting. What you were saying. When you
put your dependence on technology, then you put your dependence on technology, and
they had a scene in the last Fast and Furious movie where the bad guy takes control of like all the automated cars in a 5 block radius. Yeah, and. I'm like, why is Hollywood doing that? I mean, Hollywood's shooting the big government in the foot right there because they're showing a calamity, that's inevitable when hackers hack cars en masse. I mean, they're just going to make everybody go, let's make them crash.
All right. I don't know if we'll ever know the truth about this because whatever report they come up with will probably be stamped confidential or top secret or something.
Yeah, they know what happened.
You think they know already? I think
Yeah, they know what happened.
They're trying to learn, I think, but well, they probably know a lot more than they're telling us. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, one lesson that we could take from this, I guess, is that don't trust machines. So let's take a break right now. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back with more news from a Chengdu perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
In this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom. fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 24th, 2017. By the way, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, something is happening today on the heavenly calendar, which is going to take some explanation. Last month, yesterday was the final day of the 5th month in the Holy Calendar this year. All right, you got that? Yesterday was the final month. It was the 29th day, and the 5th month has 29 days this year. And it was the final month. It was the 29th day of the 5th month. So yesterday was the final day of the 5th month. What does that make today?
First day of the 6th month.
You would think, but it is not. Today is the first day of the second 5th month.
That's amazing.
Oh,
Yes.
we're going to have 2 5th months.
Yes, we have 2 5th months this
That's
year.
incredible.
Yeah, because the Holy Calendar, of course, goes by the. Father said that the Holy Calendar would be supported by the lunar and solar calendars in Abel and Cain position. And so it's basically on the lunar calendar, but also the solar calendar kicks in sometimes. A completely lunar calendar would be a calendar like the Islamic calendar. They don't care what the sun is doing. It's only on the based on the moon. But what the Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese also call the lunar calendar, or their traditional calendar, is actually not a complete pure lunar calendar. It's what's called a solar lunar calendar, or lunar solar calendar, whichever you want. because from time to time they make adjustments to bring the calendar back in line with the movement of the sun. And the lunar calendar year is approximately 11 days shorter than the solar calendar year. Okay, you following me, right?
Yeah.
So approximately every 3 years, there's a 1 month variation. So approximately every 3 years, and actually it's actually 7 years out of 7 out of 19 years. A extra month is inserted in the holy calendar and in other solar lunar calendars in order to make up this difference. So this year in the holy calendar there are actually 13 months, not 12.
That's because there's 12 plus moons per sun.
Yeah, but if you just do it by the moon, from new moon to new moon, or from full moon to full moon, you fall behind by approximately 11 days every year. So that's why. So people were asking, why is it that Father passed in September, but we keep celebrating his Songhua in August? Well, it's because 2012 there were actually 13 months. There was an extra third month, actually, I think it was in 2012, and so and Father passed on the 17th day of the 7th month by the holy calendar. And every year we celebrate it on the same day by the holy calendar, the 7th month, 17th day. But that day, the corresponding the day on the solar calendar changes each year. And so in the year that he passed, 2012, the 7th month, 17th day happened to correspond to September 3rd on the Gregorian calendar. But then after that, it's been in August. This year it's going to be back in September. We're going to do it on September 7th.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, Tim, overall, then there's a critical spiritual reason for following the lunar calendar as a primary, and then there's another spiritual reason for occasional course correction, if you will, to use a nautical term, by bringing the sun to bear, to bear on making a correction. And it's really interesting, having worked in navigation in the Navy, was like you set a course and you steer it, but when you're steering a course at sea, your movement in the direction of that course, your true movement, is always affected by the sea, by the swell, by the wind, and by any mechanical minor deviation, even a half of a degree, or a helmsman who's sort of like this, going back and forth. Of course, now they have these automatic systems. But therefore, what you do is you have to occasionally, if you're a submarine, surface and shoot an azimuth of the sun and get your bearings to make a course correction. So if you were at 240 and you drifted off and you're now at 230, you have to make a 10-degree course correction. Once you get shoot the azimuth of the sun, which you use it to get your true bearing, or use some other nautical aid that'll help you give a course correction.
Yeah,
so anyway, those are just interesting.
I wondered the same thing, because why would you pick the lunar calendar? I mean, if it was actually up to Father's choice, I don't know. It's actually one of those things I don't understand, which usually makes me go into months of study, right? But I always wondered, why did Father pick the lunar calendar as a subject and solar as the object? And then first thought comes to my mind, he's from that part of the world, right? So it could be nothing more than that, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I'm sure there are deep spiritual reasons that we will understand by and by. And all the saints of God are gathered home.
But it is interesting that both are involved.
Yes.
And both are critical and important in kind of governing determining timetables, and then also reviewing timetables and correcting timetables.
Now, to throw a little more wrinkle into this story, in China, the solar lunar calendar this year is not repeating the 5th month. It is repeating the 6th month.
Which calendar?
Oh, that's just awesome.
That's
Which calendar again?
it's not the same.
Because this is May 1st again, while it's June 1st over there, right?
Well, you see, now here you're doing something that I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to put to rest the Roman gods and emperors and festivals that have given their names to the months that we are still using.
Oh, okay.
And because how can you say that May has only 29 days? All right, so and this caused a lot of confusion. One year I got a complaint from someone because they were looking at the God's Day schedule and they said, how can the day after December 29th be January 1st? And so
A day in the life of
let
Tim
those
Elder.
let those Roman emperors have their rest, all right, and the Roman calendar just let's let it pass into history.
Goodness.
We've been ruled by Rome too long. It's so let's go by the numbers rather than trying to give them names. But the Chinese lunar calendar is repeating the 6th month rather than the 5th month because there's a 1 hour difference between China and Korea. Yes.
And that's why they're doing it?
Yes,
Because
that's
there's a 1
no
hour
because the
Oh.
decision of which month to repeat and so forth is depends on when you have a new moon and we'll understand it. I'm studying it but we need to understand this because we need to understand the future when to repeat months and so forth and how many days are in each month.
Maybe a little chaos is actually a good thing because
Well, this is not chaos. There are rules. There are definite rules. And in fact, there's an agency in Korea that is responsible for making these decisions. There is a government agency in Korea that is responsible for making these decisions. It's the Korean Astronomical Observatory. I've forgotten their exact name, but it's the official astronomical observatory that is, watching the sun and everything. And they make these decisions. And we follow those decisions.
well, Father was fond of lotteries sometimes, right? He'd say, okay, everybody pick a number. If you get an even number, you drop everything and you're gonna enroll in UTS.
Yes.
Right? and if you get the odd number, keep your current mission. Right? So he's letting God choose, right? So if you have enough flux.
But that's not the case here, though.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
just.
In fact, if I can look it up, I can tell you when the next month will be inserted and exactly which month will
Yeah,
be
but what
inserted
you're
up to
describing,
15, 20 years from now.
You're describing multiple authorities. You're saying that there is a Chinese reckoning, that there's a Gregorian or Western reckoning.
Yes.
There is actually, even in the Eastern way of reckoning, there are multiple schools of thought.
Not schools of thought, but because of the different astronomical observations and the time difference brings these differences
So why
between
would God
Korea and China.
embrace that?
God doesn't. God is the holy calendar, which is based on the Korean observations, at least for now.
Oh, so it's based on the Korean.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Father didn't create a new reckoning system.
No.
He just-
Well, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Okay, so this being the first day of the 2nd to 5th month in the holy calendar. And I'm not really sure what to call it. There is a technical term, intercalary. This is the intercalary month. And you can look that up in the dictionary. I had to look it up.
Well, you know the great thing about there being 2 5/5 months?
What's that?
The document that Hyunjinim is the,
Yes, the
The
declaration.
one- the-
Declaration,
oh my goodness.
where it says that he's
Anybody else is a heretic.
and a destroyer. Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
That document was drafted in the 5th month, 5/23.
By which calendar? By the holy calendar?
I assume 5/23. I mean, it could have been one of those years where there was a 2 4th months or something like that.
Because I think it was a 4th month.
Okay. Because I saw it as 4/23 and I've seen it as 5/23.
Yeah, it was a June 10th. What was it?
It was June 5th.
June 5th?
June 5th of
I'll have to check that.
2000.
I believe it was the 4th month. But anyway,
well,
all right.
If we're gonna have last month, I said congratulations on June 5th, so lunar calendar to Hyungjin, so I could say it twice. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
I can
I'm
say
sure. Hey,
congratulations 2 times this year.
there's no problem in saying congratulations often. You could do it every day, I suppose. Let's get back to the news. And let's throw in a little bit of a light news article this time. A 9-year-old youth football player gets a college scholarship offer. Yep, you bet, apparently. In case you missed it, and maybe some of us did, there's been a trend of some college programs offering scholarships to kids at much younger ages than normal. Usually this happens in the later stages of high school. Not anymore. New Florida Atlantic coach Lane Kiffin recently offered a rising 8th grader, Haddon Martin, son of former Tennessee quarterback T. Martin, now offensive coordinator at Southern California. Martin's son graduates in 2022. Kiffin offered a California quarterback who just finished 6th grade. I guess they're not actually going to play these kids, right? They're going to, I guess, train them and raise them up until they.
Right.
So Kiffin got a commitment from 15-year-old Florida quarterback Brandon McDuffie, who graduates in 2020 and hasn't thrown a varsity pass yet. He just finished 9th grade. McDuffie told USA Today, "I just felt Florida Atlantic was the best place for me to commit to as of right now. I visited the school and I like the facilities and I like campuses a lot." Wow, a 9-year-old in Los Angeles, Heaven Finney, recently received an offer from the University of Nevada. The news was reported by his trainer, Mike Evans, a former Louisville football player. Another one of Evans' clients, 10-year-old, got an offer from Illinois earlier this month. Well, actually, as I read this, I'm a little bit disturbed by all this. This is part of the bread and circus thing. But I don't think it's such a good idea to have kids so early being locked into contracts that determine their lives for the next 10 years or so, I guess, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Tim, I think my son played basketball and football in high school, and I've seen some of these things. I remember he played this kid who was 6'8", a 6'8" freshman on another team, and the guy started on the varsity, and you could see he was still trying to grow into his feet, but he had enormous potential, and he had a nice, sweet shot, but he was still learning to live in his body as an athlete. But I think these coaches saw promise in him, and so the type of commitments they make are not totally binding. Because he made a commitment as a sophomore to Indiana, the University of Indiana, and but I don't know if he actually went there or not. So I do know that some of those commitments that they make are generally non-totally binding, and there is a way to get out. But it just shows how, like you say, there's this recruiting going on, an attempt by coaches and schools to grab potential at earlier and earlier age, which seems crazy, and it does have an effect on the way people think and live, and the way families take care of their kids and raise them up and mentor them and so forth.
I'm sure he has a good football potential, but he may have a good potential in other areas as well.
Yeah.
And to sort of choose this path for a child that age would bother me. But in
Do you feel it's like abusive?
Well, potentially, yeah. But in Chattanooga, of course, the families do what they want, and if there's failure, then they can learn from that, and other people can also learn from failed examples, and maybe this is what I kind of feel that this is going to lead towards. 5, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to be reading articles about how these kids, so at least some of them, regretted their choices, regretted having been recruited like this at such an early age.
And you know that their parents play the primary role in this because the kids didn't go out and seek this opportunity.
Right.
And the parents managed it, in other words, and they made the decision. And that raises a lot of questions too.
I put my daughter in gymnastics at 3, and she was, well, you know, anyway, she was pretty stable. And then she didn't want to go anymore, right? But can you imagine some scout saying, let's sign her. She's 3. She's really that good. I know, blah, 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 blah. And then my daughter goes, I don't want to do this anymore because she's a kid, right? She turns 6 and she goes, this is boring, or whatever her reasons, right? And then I'm like, but we're legally locked in, or so I'm wondering about that kind of thing.
Well, even if you're not legally locked in, you may be financially locked in. In other words, you may have received money or other things that if you leave the contract, you'll have to repay, and you're not able to repay it. So even though there's not a sort of a legal requirement, there are other ways of locking people in.
Well, it's a legal requirement to repay, right?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that happens is then parents choose coaches, mentors, special training programs, and spend a lot of money to help develop their kids at an early age, and it gets more and more technical. And then that creates a whole system of pressure, you know, on a child.
Yes, it does.
That can force them into a track when they may not want to. I mean,
You know, you see, have you ever seen these North Korean children performing?
gymnasts that are brought. there's-
Music and stuff like
Music,
yeah.
and they're extremely good.
that. In sync.
Yeah, in sync. Let's see if we can play this without. Can we get this on? I mean, look at these kids. They're incredibly good, right? But you got to think of what kind of training environment must have gone into having them reach this kind of a technical ability at this age.
Yeah, it's like, do it right, I'll beat your booty.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine that they're 100% patient with these kids.
You know,
Because they're doing it for the state, right?
they're doing it for the state. Yeah, they're doing it because they were told to do it. I mean, no, they don't know why they're doing it. All right, let's take a break and come back with more news with Jamal and Bill from a Tony Group perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for the June 24th of 2017, a Saturday, and the first day of the second fifth month on the Holy Calendar. I have to get used to saying that. And we're not quite sure yet how to refer to this second fifth month and whether that's the right way to do it. Let's
call it May May.
May May. Well, anyway, may not May.
May squared.
Anyway, let's move on, please. Let's move on. This weekend we have a lot of gay pride marches going on across the country, so let's talk about that. Also, some protest marches as well. New York, AP is writing out of New York. Gay pride marches in New York City, San Francisco, and in between this weekend will have plenty of participants in all protests, and also protests directed at them from other members of the LGBT community, speaking out against what they are seeing as increasingly corporate celebrations that prioritize the experience of gay white men and ignore issues facing black and brown LGBT people. A split. The protest disrupted other pride events earlier this month in Washington, D.C. The No Justice, No Pride group blocked the parade route. In Columbus, Ohio, 4 people were arrested after a group set out to protest violence against minority LGBT people and the recent acquittal of a police officer in the shooting death of Philando Castile, a black man, during a traffic stop. Nobody wants to feel dropped in a community that prides itself on diversity, said Mike Basilis, one of the organizers of the planned New York City protest action by No Justice, No Pride. In Minneapolis, organizers of Sunday's Twin Cities Pride Parade initially asked the police department to limit participation following the acquittal of police officer Geronimo Yanez in the death of Castile, but organizers changed their minds after meeting Thursday with Jenny Harto, the city's openly gay police chief, who called the decision divisive and hurtful to LGBT officers. On Friday, the organizers apologized and said they had neglected to consider other alternatives. They said the officers are welcome to march after all. In Philadelphia, where racial relations in the LGBT community are beginning to mend after a year of community protests, the introduction of a rainbow flag, the traditional symbol of LGBT unity and diversity, that added black and brown stripes to represent blacks and Latinos, has spilled over into a national debate. The recent flare-up of racial tensions came as no surprise to Isaiah Wilson, Director of External Affairs for the National Black Justice Coalition, one of the few national groups focused specifically on black LGBT rights. He said the broader LGBT rights movement has been whitewashed, dominated to a large extent by white gay men. Black, queer, and trans folks have always been there, but our contributions have been devalued, Wilson said. He said major LGBT rights groups need to be frank in discussing the issue of racism, as well as recruiting and supporting non-white leaders. Until the mainstream LGBT groups address this, we're not going to move forward, and you'll continue to see this pressure, Wilson said. In my opinion, the pressure is good. It has us talking. Shannon Minter, a white attorney who is the legal director of the National Center for Lesbian Rights, said LGBT people of color were justified in challenging racist aspects of the LGBT rights movement. The real test will be, can the LGBT movement own up to its historic legacy of racism and evolve to be more accountable and inclusive of people of color? Minter, a transgender man, wondered. If not, then it will cease to be a major political movement. One reason for the tensions, according to some activists, is a racial divide when it comes to the LGBT rights movement's agenda. For years, many national groups focused on legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide, a goal achieved in 2015. For many LGBT people of color, there continue to be more pressing issues such as economic inequality, policing, and incarceration. In a lot of places, we're just trying to survive, said Wilson. The division has led to controversy when attempts have been made to address race, as in Philadelphia. The city drew criticism last summer when activists raised concerns that the Gayborhood, the city's main gay enclave, discriminated against blacks. Gay blacks complained of dress codes banning Timberlands and sweatpants, of not being served in a timely manner at bars, and of being stopped and asked for identification at clubs while white customers walked in unbothered. In January, Philadelphia officials issued a report confirming long-standing racism in the neighborhood and pledged to penalize businesses that did not make changes. Earlier this month, the city unveiled a new flag meant to be a more inclusive reflection of gay pride, with a black and brown stripe added to the existing rainbow motif. The flag's introduction stirred heated commentary from supporters as well as those who felt it was interjecting race unnecessarily. Pride organizers around the city have taken steps to address the criticisms. In San Francisco, Sunday's Pride event will be led by groups including the Baynard Rustin LGBT Club, SF Black Community Matters, African Human Rights, and Bay Area Queer People of Color. In New York City, the march organizers are putting a contingent of groups more focused on protest than celebration at the head of the event. The LGBT community does need to confront these issues, said Michelle Miao, an Asian American woman who is board president of San Francisco Pride, and the Pride celebration is a platform for that dialogue to happen. New York City spokesman James Falorino said that if there are any disruptions or protests during the event, we're going to make sure we do everything in our power to respect the people who are disrupting or protesting and to respect their message. That's it. So, you never knew that God's rainbow is racist. It doesn't have the brown and black stripes there.
No, yeah. Pretty racist.
Yeah, Tim, it seems like the Chattanooga Constitution puts the world, corrects the world that's upside down to make it right side up. And I think this whole thing here on LGBT rights is the whole attention on differences and the being offended when my difference is not being acknowledged and respected appropriately. And with the constant attention there rather than what we have in common, we will constantly be fighting. And that's why, I mean, this whole thing is upside down. Instead of putting attention on where there is commonality, that we're human beings, that we're created by God, I mean, because we can't find that common center, we will always be in dispute about differences.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was
We're
better.
in a culture that worships difference and thinks that is so critical to being fair and equal, is that we constantly focus on differences. We want to worship them. We have this, we must celebrate our differences while we also secondarily recognize our common ground. That whole expression is upside down because the world is upside down. It should be just the opposite.
Before we go to Jamal, I just want to remind people that in the Chattanooga Constitution and in Chattanooga, there will still be opportunity for gay pride parades and for protests. And if this kind of thing this kind of an article could happen in Chattanooga because the Constitution does not. The Constitution just says that the government cannot support any lifestyle other than monogamous heterosexual marriage between men and women. But there is no. It will not be illegal to have this kind of thing. So I just want to make that clear. More and more, of course, as Chattanooga goes on, and as more and more people understand their Father's words, this kind of thing, I guess, will be corrected. But at least in the initial stages, there will be no this kind of thing. Gay pride parades maybe will happen. It's possible.
If the whole discussion of inequalities is divisive, you'd have to. Maybe we should go back to gay folks going back in the closet, because they're the ones bringing out the inequality. They say, "Well, I deserve special attention because of this difference." Mm-hmm. So if the discussion of differences is in itself the problem, then you do that in your bedroom anyway, away from my eyes. Why bring it up? So let's be human out on the streets together, and not call any attention to our differences. That kind of lends itself to the suggestion that staying in the closet is kind of a good idea.
But isn't the problem here that relativism has its own limitations or its own contradictions? That you eventually come up, you say, well, let's love everyone, let's accept everyone. But then you come up against things that you yourself, a relativist himself, feels uncomfortable with or cannot accept. In other words, if a person says everyone, then he comes up against someone who's actually doing something that as you keep on going.
Of course, a relativist. Everybody has things that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why it's good to defer to an absolute authority, right?
That's right.
And the absolute, honor thy mother and father, right? So it doesn't say honor your father and father, or honor your mother and mother, right? But there's an actual benefit to honoring your mother and father. You align yourself with the will of lineage, and you have an intention towards your sexuality in that for the procreative powers of your own sexual organ, when you align yourself that way. And that has a benefit to society, especially the next generation. And to equate, the gay experience with the heterosexual experience, it's a silly conversation. I'd rather not have the conversation. And if people are doing something in their bedrooms that doesn't produce new citizens, we don't really have to talk about it.
Yeah. That's right. All right. Interesting to me that there's apparently racism within the.
That's crazy. I mean, that shows the power of culture, because as a black man in the Unification Church, right? This is white and Asian culture galore. I mean, I got people treating me these days like the ruffian from hell, and I've toned it down being here, I mean, most people, if they actually approached me and said, well, why did you do this or why did you do that, they would find that many of the undertones of my decisions is to project that I choose not to fit in, right? So it's all. Sometimes when you hear Cook Chinham, he'll use a very extreme analogy, so that it leaves no room for debate. He'll go to the ultimate expression of the case that he's making, right? So that people go, oh, so he's very extremely clear about the direction that he's taking. And in like manner, I will speak so as to wipe out any ambiguity about my position. But people find that disrespectful. But I actually find it disrespectful that they expect me to allow ambiguity about my position. They're like, how could you not let me have room to play with your opinion? And I'm like, that's disrespectful. And but because we come from different cultures. In the black community, you get my point. We come from different cultures. So black people will find white norms offensive for just that reason. It's not like white people are intending to be offensive. They're just comfortable with certain standards. And they know why they're comfortable with those standards. And if among themselves, they're not perturbing one another, But bringing somebody from a different culture, and they're irritated. They feel like you're unnecessarily crushing this form of expression, and the white people are like, hey, you can go over there and have your black Mecca, your black capital over there, And then they go, no, well, we can't do that. You're being exclusionary. And say, okay, so we'll change who we are. I don't want white people to change who they are. For me as a black man, okay? I don't. I think it's unfair for black people to expect white people to change who they are. You know, white people have been the people to go around the planet and exploit everything. You know, because they view business in a certain way. When they go back home to their moms and dads and they had some victorious business conquest story to share, it has a lot of value in those homes. You know, black people, they really like gelling, inclusion, entertainment, finding a creative way to make different rhythms, you know? And Father said, you grow up in the snow, you develop a certain culture. You grow up in a tropical place, you develop a different culture. But trying to make these people like force a change, like force them to appreciate or value what you grew up valuing, I think that's also disrespectful.
Is this, I guess, why Father encouraged interracial blessings in marriages? Mm-hmm. So that we have people coming from both traditions, children coming from both traditions.
Yeah, my kids are Blasian.
Blasian.
Yeah. That's what the kids in the church call them.
Well, and he also wanted to do that because he, in my interpretation, thinks that from each of our cultures we have good things and we also have rough edges. And that when we come together like that, the good things can grow and develop, hopefully. And some of the rough edges, we like a piece of cut glass thrown in the ocean will smooth off a little bit. Not that, and I don't know that there's anything inherently wrong with smoothing off a rough edge. There might be. Maybe we should just all have rough edges and continue to grate each other. But I think in marriage we learn how to accept and accommodate some of those, and sometimes we make decisions that, hey, I don't need this rough edge anymore, and it's actually not. But we have to take responsibility for our rough edges, if we have any. Of course, if we don't have any, then okay, then we just parade our sharp edges. And that happens a lot too. But it seems to me that Father has put us together in order to us to find common ground and harmony and love each other, while we also learn about those edges and learn how to love and appreciate them in a balanced way.
I love fighting, professional fighting. And my wife was struck by how the guys would hug each other after trying to beat the crap out of each other. Right? Man, you gave me a good fight, man. That was the best fight I had in a long time, man. You are the man. You know, and they're like busted, right? And you know, I don't see the conflict as it's part of life. You know, you can have a healthy respect for conflict. You know, as long as there's a God. You know, because you're not trying to hurt that person in some kind of ultimate way, you know. And I think that when these black gay people are, you know, moaning about, you know, the standards at a club, and they're trying to use their blackness as a wedge to force people to change, you know, their preferences. It's kind of I think it's bad and good. It's bad to do that in general. But the whole gay community has done that to the other 98% of us for the last decade. Shoved their crap down our throat.
More than a decade, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're getting a little bit from the black edge of your own community. I hope you learn something.
Okay, I'd like to move on now before we go to our next 5-minute break because China and the U.S. Had a meeting the last couple of days about what to do with North Korea. And there's an article that actually not in the U.S. media but in the Chinese media, which is now being reported on Reuters about the results of that meeting. I just wanted to cover that because we're keeping a close watch on what happens in Korea. This is a conflict, but a conflict without God, I guess. China and the United States agreed that efforts to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula should be complete, verifiable, and irreversible. Chinese state media said on Saturday, reporting the results of high-level talks in Washington this week. Both sides reaffirmed that they will strive for the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, a consensus document released by the official Xinhua news agency said. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson had said on Thursday that the United States pressed China to ramp up economic and political pressure on North Korea during his meeting with top Chinese diplomats and defense chiefs. China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi and General Fang Fenghui met Tillerson and Defense Secretary Jim Mattis during the talks. Yang later met with U.S. President Donald Trump in the White House, where they also discussed North Korea, Xinhua reported. The consensus document also highlights the need to fully and strictly hold to UN Security Council resolutions and push for dialogue and negotiation, which has long been China's position on the issue. Military-to-military exchanges should also be upgraded and mechanisms of notification established in order to cut risks of judgment errors between the U.S. and Chinese and U.S. militaries, the statement also said. Chinese state media described the talks, the first of their kind with the Trump administration, as an upgrade in dialogue mechanisms between China and the United States, following on from President Xi Jinping's meeting with Trump in Florida in April. Xi and Trump are next expected to meet in Hamburg during the G20 summit next month. Reuters is falling down on its editing, I think, but a day before last week's talks, President Donald Trump said China's efforts to use its leverage with North Korea had failed, raising fresh doubts about his administration's strategy for countering the threat from North Korea. The death of an American student earlier this week further complicated Trump's approach to North Korea. China, North Korea's main trading partner, has been accused of not fully enforcing existing U.S. sanctions and has resisted some tougher measures. Washington has considered further secondary sanctions against Chinese banks and other firms doing business with North Korea, which China opposes. So just to let you know that this kind of a talks meeting took place this week between the U.S. and China, and we still don't know what's going to happen there in North Korea. North Korea has not conducted its sixth nuclear test. They did test an engine yesterday, I think, and that's, of course, also part of their attempt to develop an ICBM that is capable of striking the U.S. mainland, which is also capable of striking China, as I think the Chinese are aware, and the Russians are also aware that the situation on the Korean Peninsula continues to be very, very volatile.
Well, it seems that initially you were saying, Tim, that the Trump administration was trying to develop and use a, quote, China card to deal with North Korea. But at the same time is showing that it's willing to sanction Chinese banks.
That's part of their.
If they're not really taking serious effort.
Well, that's part of
the
that's part of the attempt to develop this China card, because China will only act with regard to North Korea if they see that it's in their own interest.
Yeah.
And so the idea of the sanctions would be, I guess, to make it in Chinese interest to act on North Korea. Yeah. But that kind of thing, though, it hasn't really worked. I don't know if that really has worked against North Korea in the past or against China in the past. Sanctions, I'm really skeptical about the effectiveness of sanctions in general.
Well, it seems to have to be more than a one-prong attack. I mean, you have to also directly stand up to the bully, which is what Trump is trying to do, bringing ships into
North Korea. North Korea?
The North Korean bully.
Well, standing up to him, but in the case of North Korea, you have to stop them.
Yeah, you have to stop
not just freeze their nuclear program, but actually to eliminate it, stop it. And I think the only way to really do that would be for China to take military action against North Korea. Another alternative would be for China to break apart and become weak so that North Korea no longer has a sponsor. That would be another way.
They're more than a bully, they're terrorists.
Yeah.
You know, so.
All right, let's take a break now. We'll come back in 5 minutes with more news from a Tony perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 24th, 2017, the 8th year of Chungi and the second fifth month, first day. And now let's go to all that mess that's going on in Washington. I don't know how much people are outside of Washington are really interested in all this, but I guess we do need to keep track of it just in case it develops into something really, really serious. The Republican House Oversight Committee members on Friday called for an investigation into former FBI Director James Comey and Special Counsel Robert Mueller for acting in a partisan manner and applying double standards when it came to the Obama and Trump administrations. Representatives Jim Jordan of Ohio and Mark Meadows of North Carolina and Jody Heiss of Georgia said Comey misled the American people last year when he agreed to then Attorney General Loretta Lynch's request that he call an investigation into Hillary Clinton a matter instead of an investigation. He did it willfully, he did it intentionally, and he did it at the direction of Attorney General Loretta Lynch, they wrote in a piece published on FoxNews.com. They also said Comey misled the American people in the early weeks of the Trump administration by furthering the perception that President Trump was under investigation when in fact he was not. He again did this willfully and intentionally, they wrote. They also pointed out that Comey recently admitted having a friend leak one of his memos detailing a private conversation he had with Trump after Trump fired him. Comey admitted doing so to spark the appointment of a special counsel for the investigation into Russian interference and any collusion with the Trump campaign. That person appointed was Robert Mueller, Comey's mentor and predecessor, they wrote. The American people want justice to be blind. They want equal justice and equal protection for everyone, but Mr. Comey's actions continue to call his impartiality and the impartiality of the Holder and Lynch Justice Departments into question, they said. They pointed out that on May 7, 2014, the House passed a resolution calling for a special counsel to investigate the IRS targeting of conservatives for their political beliefs. Comey and Attorney General Eric Holder blocked the appointment. This despite the fact that the lead investigator they assigned to the case, Barbara Boserman, was a maxed-out contributor to President Obama's re-election campaign, they wrote. This is the type of unequal justice that Americans despise. No special counsel in the IRS targeting the investigation, no special counsel for the Clinton email investigation. But if it's about protecting Comey's reputation and hurting President Trump, then of course there has to be a special counsel, they said. They said throughout 2015 and 16, there were calls from Congress for a special counsel for the Clinton email scandal, but the Justice Department refused, even after it was revealed that Lynch had met privately with Bill Clinton. They also said Mueller's impartiality was questionable. 4 weeks after the Treasury's Inspector General released a report on the IRS targeting scandal and the Justice Department began their investigation into it. Mueller could not even answer basic questions about the investigation during testimony. Investigating the targeting of conservatives by IRS, which was the biggest story in the news at the time, was clearly not a priority for Mr. Mueller. As FBI director, he didn't even know who was doing what, they wrote. In contrast, Mueller has handpicked a team of investigators for the Trump investigation. You'd better believe Mr. Mueller has handpicked the exact team he wants, they wrote. They say that this team includes, the team includes a lot of people who are partial towards Clinton and Obama. So far, they said of the dozen people named to Mueller's team, none have similarly supported Republican presidential candidates. So they're going to try and investigate Comey and Mueller. So you have are we going to have a special counsel to investigate the special counsel?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it.
To investigate the investigator.
That's why you know, it's about Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about Hillary because the whole Russia collusion narrative is to distract us from the fact that it's to distract Trump from his intention. I think it was the second debate, right, where he said, you know, I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor to look into your situation. So her friends are saving her from that. And he's just a patsy, okay? Comey's just a patsy. Russia collusion is just another smokescreen, and the real big wicked witch that should be taken down is Hillary Clinton. So I just look at this as another way to, tack on another few months of discussion about something that's really not the root problem. You know, Comey's going to go down, and you'll still have the Clintons at large, not punished for the crap that they did that most of us know they did. You know?
Yeah.
He's small fish.
Well, I think on the one hand, it is good to call that whole testimony and Comey's whole behavior into question and examine it, because he's so clearly, blatantly violated not only protocol, but possibly legal. I've heard that he has violated the law in disclosing and sharing that private and confidential document that belongs to the government. It wasn't his to own. That memo that he wrote wasn't his. It wasn't his personal memo.
Yeah.
Like some sort of memoir.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all. He wrote it while he was in office, based on an actual meeting, as a recollection on a government computer, and put it into a government file in his government office.
Right.
So to claim that it is some private, personal thing that he's free to share with whomever is ludicrous.
Yeah, or for the
So
media.
patently ludicrous.
They'll
And for
allow
everyone
him
to just allow that and accept it, and it's fine, and it's no big deal, and
Right.
it's this whole culture of divulging things from any source, and we just live in this crazy
You're talking about the leaks?
world. The leaks as well as this. I mean, he created his own leak, and then it was public, and then brazen enough to be public about telling how he did it, which is amazing, and feels and expects to walk away without any consequences.
Meanwhile, let's do another related story. Loretta Lynch, a Clinton campaign, Soros officials, all caught up in Senate probe on Comey firing. The Senate Judiciary Committee announced Friday it sent 4 investigatory letters, include one to former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. The letters, dated Thursday and signed by the committee's bipartisan leadership, demand answers and documents related to the 2016 investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. Especially reports that Clinton campaign operatives expressed confidence Lynch would keep that investigation from going too far. The demand comes as Judiciary Committee investigates the circumstances surrounding the dismissal of the ex-FBI Director James Comey, in which the material may take on a new significance. The New York Times reported this April that not only had Lynch told then Director Comey in September 2015 to refer to the investigation of Secretary Clinton and her staff as a matter, but that the Justice Department obtained a Russian document in March 2016 showing a Democratic operative expressing confidence that Ms. Lynch would keep the Clinton investigation from going too far. The Washington Post followed up in May, calling the document dubious, but identifying it as a Russian report on an alleged email between Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonardo Bernardo, the Eurasia director of leftist billionaire George Soros' infamous Open Societies Foundations. The Russia report is said to have claimed Wasserman Schultz assured Bernardo that Attorney General Lynch had been in contact with senior Clinton staffer Amanda Renteria and told the campaign the investigation would not go too far. According to the press release from Judiciary Committee Chairman Senator Chuck Grassley, the investigatory letters come as the Judiciary Committee is examining the circumstances surrounding the removal of James Comey as FBI director. So all these people are being caught up now. The Senate committee is looking into them, including this man who works for the Soros Foundation.
Well, the positive on that is that it could represent the beginning of the tables turning. I know the other clue on that or event. I think it was yesterday. Trump tweeted something about why didn't the Trump administration and all those people,
the Obama administration,
take action on the Russian.
That's right. Yeah. Why did they wait until October? That was
why
one
did
of
they wait until October?
Yeah.
When they had the information earlier and they took no action, why was that?
Yeah.
And the belief is that under that was their own strategy to keep that under wraps because they believed Hillary was going to win the election, and then use it whenever they needed to.
I think if you take into account what the King has been teaching, his last was it 2 Sundays and the third Sunday service going back, he talked about sin is debt, it's mutual enmity, and it's a crime. And the first 2 can be forgiven, but the third can't.
Yes.
And so once you create a culture where the third can, right, then people want to be more like that personality that got away with it. So you're actually inviting people to be like Hillary Clinton if Trump doesn't actually go the distance. And so his own weakness, not wanting to look like the bad guy, he'll be painted in the media because with their colorful characterizations, they will paint him. He's going to be the new Hitler if he goes after her. He's bashing women if he goes after her, but he has to do it anyway. And they're going to call him a bully, and they're going to they're going to say that he's heavy-handed with the law, and they're going to sit there going, just wait till we get back in power. We're going to damn near rape you with the law, and they're going to brew all of it. So we know that all of that is going to be dredged up and generated if he takes her down. Right? But if she's a criminal, take her down.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is they're going to fight back against Trump. Worst case scenario, something very bad happens to him. Or very bad things happen, and then when people see that heavy-handed response from the Dems, that's it. That's their last hurrah right there. They're going to say, you people are actually really psychopathic. And nobody's going to be proud to be a Democrat anymore. But in order for us to get to that place, Trump actually has to punish the crime. And if he doesn't, people are going to be like, wow, it's kind of good to be a Hillary Clinton-ish type of person because you kind of get the joy of doing dirt and the joy of escaping punishment. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. You can do the crime
he needs to,
and not do the
he
time.
needs to lock her up. He needs to lock her up. It's not just a campaign slogan.
Yeah, we went to those rallies, and the lock her up motif, it was amazing. So...
Also, CNN yesterday tried to pin a new conspiracy theory on Trump, but then they got shot down because Breitbart they investigated it and proved that it was wrong, and CNN was forced to issue a retraction. CNN has admitted it printed what President Donald Trump calls very fake news and retracted a demonstrably inaccurate hit piece on the president and its allies after a Breitbart News investigation uncovered significant inaccuracies and flaws in CNN's work. On June 22nd, CNN.com published a story connecting Anthony Scaramucci with investigations into the Russian Direct Investment Fund, CNN said in a statement late Friday night. That story did not meet CNN's editorial standards and has been retracted. Links to the story have been disabled. CNN apologizes to Mr. Scaramucci. The statement was sent out very, very late Friday evening on CNN's Twitter account. The retraction is a complete cave by a network that is notorious for trying to pick fights with President Trump and his allies. President Trump has identified CNN as a very fake news network. It comes on the heels of Breitbart News reporting on the inaccurate CNN hit piece, citing senior administration officials and sources close to the Senate GOP leadership. The thrust of CNN's inaccurate piece, which is no longer available online, was a demonstrably untrue allegation that the Senate Intelligence Committee and Treasury Department were probing a Russian investment fund with ties to senior Trump allies like Anthony Scaramucci. Using a single anonymous source, CNN wrote, the source said the Senate Intelligence Committee is investigating the Russian fund in connection with its examination of discussions between White House advisor Jared Kushner and the head of a prominent Russian bank. The bank, very long name, or VEB, oversees the fund, which has ties to several Trump advisors. Both the bank and the fund have been covered since 2014 by sanctions restricting U.S. business dealings. The Senate Intelligence Committee declined to comment on the matter when reached by Breitbart News, but a source close to the Senate GOP leadership confirmed to Breitbart News that the allegation was bogus and politically motivated by Democrats. The GOP source close to the Senate GOP leadership said this is nothing besides Democrats trying to frustrate the efforts of President Trump's administration, while Elizabeth Warren and those of her ilk spend their days collecting taxpayer-funded paychecks while they do nothing but stand in the way of the progress of the American agenda and are responsible for this nonsense. They should put their names on it if they want to waste taxpayer money on it. But as Breitbart News noted in its original investigation into the demonstrably fake news CNN hit piece, this supposed Senate investigation exists only among Democrats and not the actual Senate Intelligence Committee. Breitbart News noted in the original investigation, this is the case, but that was not all that was wrong with the fake news piece from CNN. The CNN report continued. Separately, Steve Mnuchin, now Treasury Secretary, said in a January letter that he would look into the January 16 meeting between the fund's chief executive and Anthony Scaramucci, a member of the transition team's executive committee and a fundraiser and advisor to Trump's presidential campaign. At the time, Mnuchin said had not yet been confirmed as Treasury Secretary. The Treasury Department did not respond to a request for an update. Two Democratic senators had asked Treasury to investigate whether Scaramucci promised to lift sanctions, a policy shift that would help the fund attract more international investment to Russia. It turns out, as Breitbart News noted in the original investigation, that the two Democrats who pushed for a probe of Scaramucci's supposed meeting with the investment fund executive, which was not really a meeting, were Senators Ben Cardin and Elizabeth Warren. Scaramucci debunked the CNN fake news report in his original quote to the network, detailing how there was no such meeting to begin with. CNN originally wrote in the now retracted inaccurate hit piece, Scaramucci, the founder of Skybridge Capital, minimized his January meeting with Dmitriev in the resort town of Davos, Switzerland, at the celebrated annual gathering of World Economic Forum. Scaramucci had met Dmitriev at previous Davos meetings, although at the gathering in January, Scaramucci was expecting to be named White House liaison to the business community. CNN also wrote that Scaramucci told the network in an email that Dmitriev came over to say hello in a restaurant and I was cordial, there's nothing there. The idea that the Treasury Department is investigating this is also completely baseless, as Breitbart News reported. The matter has been reviewed and determined to be without merit, a senior administration official told Breitbart News. The inaccurate piece remained online for nearly an entire day, despite Breitbart News' earlier inquiries to CNN about it. It was not until long after Breitbart News published its expose on the fake news piece from CNN hours later that CNN finally retracted the piece and issued an editor's note at 10:44 p.m. Eastern Time announcing the grave error. CNN's tweet was not until 11:50 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's CNN got caught with its hand in the cookie jar.
But it's interesting, they still probably count it as a victory because they got back out on the field and made another complaint that a lot of people read.
Mm-hmm.
And their hope is that most people don't follow up on these things.
Especially the retraction was published apparently late at night, almost 11 o'clock last night.
Page 53 again. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so there's never like a genuine admission of an error. It's all, everything is surreptitious and.
Well, in today's society, you never admit error because if you do, you get sued. Yeah. Right?
You know,
you never say you're sorry.
One of the Alinsky tactics that I find the left using is it's almost like they get into their think tank and say, okay, fellas, you know we're guilty of A, B, and C, right? So we have to find a way. Our dad Alinsky told us that we have to find a way to tie A, B, and C to our opposition. That way, when they're about to come out and claim that we're guilty of A, B, and C, we will have accused them a week earlier. Mm-hmm. So it'll seem like they're just being babies, right? So Alinsky taught them how to do this kind of thing. Alinsky said, look at what you're guilty of, right? And get out in front and accuse the other guy any convoluted way you can tie them to that thing. And then the media carries it. The media says, yeah, that's pretty plausible for you, right? Yeah. And so now you're colored Russia collusion. This woman took X number, was it $20 million, right? For the uranium one, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, nobody talks about that, right? People tried to say that he was cool with the Saudis, but apparently she's the one that took the money from the Saudis, right? So I'm like, oh, they're Alinskyite all day long. Everything they're guilty of, they paint the other guy in that.
Jamal was referring to Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals that was published in 1971 about basically how to overturn society.
Yeah.
And it was a leftist guidebook for revolution in America.
Well, she studied it. She studied under
Hillary Clinton studied it, and a lot of other people studied it. It was very famous at that time.
Yeah, Hillary idolized the guy. Mm-hmm. And he dedicated his book to Lucifer, the first radical, who at least got his own kingdom.
Mm-hmm. When you combine that, I don't know, Saul Alinsky created the idea of the value of strategically using unnamed sources. I don't know if that's in his Rules for Radicals. But when you combine that new accepted norm by both the right and the left, unnamed sources are valid for journalistic purposes to share valid news. The beauty of having an unnamed source is that you don't even have to have a source. You can make them up. You can virtually make them up because there's no accountability at all in using unnamed sources. And why we accept this as a journalistic tool, authentic, genuine tool that is critical to reporting and to a free press is beyond me.
So
it should be revealed for what it really is.
The way it's supposed to work is that if you have a source,
it doesn't.
Let me tell you how. There is a way that it's supposed to work because some sources cannot be named. Because if you name your source, then the source will lose his job or the source will go to jail. So a journalist does have to protect his sources, and there are certain sources that cannot be named, but the information does need to get out. So what you're supposed to do, though, is you're supposed to tell your editor. The editor needs to know who the source is, and then the editor will make a judgment about this.
But Tim, then what if the journalist and the editor are both in collusion?
Then you have a problem,
and the whole thing is corrupt.
Yes.
Well, I like what Mike Tyson did a few years back. He was up in Canada doing some morning show, and the news guy decided to, do a gotcha segment on him being a felon, him having gone to jail in the past, and saying that something about his current behavior is tied to an angry past and all this kind of stuff. But he introduced the whole thing and said, people are saying blah, 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 right? So Mike didn't want to have any of that. And so what Mike said is, I don't know anybody saying that. I haven't heard one person say, you're the first person that I heard saying that. And so Mike looked like he wanted to punish him.
Yeah.
And so you're the only one saying that. Mm-hmm. Why are you saying that about me? And this is Mike Tyson, who's known to like blow up. So the guy sitting there in the chair is like, I'm responsible for pissing off Mike Tyson, no matter what I say. So the next time I saw that technique used was Trump. Mm-hmm. Some woman was saying, people are saying blah, blah, blah. He was like, who? Who are the people? Mm-hmm. No, we're not continuing the conversation until you tell me who these people are. Mm-hmm. Okay, how do I know you didn't make them up? Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. Mm-hmm. And he just dismissed it as invalid. Mm-hmm. And so if you accept the burden of proof against the archangel, mm-hmm. when you don't have to, mm-hmm. you're just giving him power. You're giving him leverage that he didn't earn, that he doesn't deserve. It's not written into the principle that he should have. So you got to catch him on all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, why would you accept the burden to prove that some unnamed person was wrong? Like, I'm not accepting the burden to prove that this unnamed person is wrong in what they supposedly said. Mm-hmm. Next question.
Unnamed people don't get that respect.
I'm actually being tricked into giving you something to fight me with. Mm-hmm. Well, like, why the hell would I do that? Mm-hmm. And most people don't know that. Mm-hmm. They feel responsible, and the media takes advantage of that.
I think my judgment on this whole thing is if you have an unnamed source that you cannot in one way or another be accountable to someone, mm-hmm. then that should not be an accepted journalistic tool at all, period, ever. If you can't find someone that has a name to make an accusation, then you're done. You know, I don't see the value to society of giving credibility to unnamed sources, Tim. I don't see it. I understand the idea that you want to protect someone, mm-hmm. but if in protecting someone you become a criminal, you're allowed the room to make things up and not be accountable. That's wrong. Mm-hmm. It cannot be a device that can be used.
If you do that, it's wrong, yes. And so if the system is abused, it's wrong, yes.
It is abused.
It is being abused, and when the system is abused, it's wrong. But there are times, though, when there is information that needs to get out, and the person who's giving you the information won't give it to you unless you protect him.
It's also a loss of sovereignty on the part of the people to allow the whole culture to normalize accepting it, you know?
Yeah, and while it can be out there, it still has to be put out there with a caution. It's not verified.
But another principle,
it's just a claim.
Another principle, of course, in journalism. Another principle in journalism, of course, is that you should have three sources. Mm-hmm. If you're getting the same three independent sources, by the way. Because sometimes you'll have three sources that are all coming from one source, and that's also a trap, but that some journalists fall into. But there should be three independent sources. So if you're going to make a claim, especially if it's a serious accusation or claim, you just can't say an unnamed source says that Johnny is a dirty rat. You have to have, you have to talk with other people. You cannot just go on one person's word.
Yeah. But at the same time, we have to appreciate where these are. They're accusations, they're not facts. And therefore, I don't have to defend myself from an accusation because it's not a documented fact.
Next question.
Like Trump said, next question.
Yeah.
But let's go back to Bill Gertz's article that we read earlier today. Mm-hmm. That had some unnamed sources in it, but that had unnamed sources that were giving important information to us.
Go ahead.
All right. But we are okay with that because Bill is a reputable journalist. He's written a lot of stuff that that has turned out to be true, and we know that he's a journalist who does his work and doesn't abuse the system. But here he's quoting unnamed U.S. Navy officials, for example. And if he were to name them, they would never talk to him again, and he would not be able to. Write any more articles, and that would be a loss for all of us and for all of society. Because
what has he written, and then we have to assess based on what he's written what the value of it is and what we do with it.
Well, we read the story already earlier today, but talking about the USS Fitzgerald's accident, he was quoting some named sources, but also unnamed sources.
Being lied to is a reciprocal problem because it's not just the bad journalism. It's the tendency to want to be lied to, you know. So if you actually are looking for a way to not be responsible for something you should be responsible for, and somebody's going to give you a storyline that helps you, you'll just want to accept that storyline. And we know that liberalism is irresponsible. So the more uneducated people with no outlook for their own life and their family's, advancement, the more people you have that are uneducated and in that situation, the more they like to believe that there is something to this Robin Hood state. Okay, so the ends justify the means. So if you're gonna do a hit piece on a conservative and you don't have facts, I don't really care. Just as long as he's taken down, just as long as his voice is silenced, and then I get my check at the end of the month from the government.
Let me just read you these two paragraphs in Bill Gertz's article on the USS Fitzgerald. According to officials who spoke on condition of anonymity, initial reports on the incident indicate no crew member was manning the controls in the pilot house of the Crystal when it hit the Fitzgerald. After impact, the freighter was not immediately aware that it had collided with anything and continued sailing. The ship's crew then realized it had been in a collision and sailed back to try to determine what had happened. So, would you say that should be taken out of the article? Those two paragraphs? It gives us important information, which, although it's still an unnamed source, helps us understand what was going on.
Well, reporters go in there and look at incidents, and they're trying to gather information. I think what's important for a reader to understand is this is still preliminary. There's been no investigation to determine all the causes.
Of course, and that's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And by the time the report comes out, we'll have all forgotten about the incident anyway. So we want to know now.
Yeah.
But the report's going to come out a couple of years from now.
Yeah, I know. But you do get somebody on a, it's not totally confirmed information. I think that's what you have to take away from it if you're an astute reader.
Initial reports, that's what it says.
It's
Initial
an
reports.
Report, and it could be from somebody that got it wrong. I heard you talked to somebody that third hand heard there was no one in the conning tower when actually there was.
And so you also judge, the reader also judges based on what media is reporting this. Is that a media that I trust? And also what reporter is reporting this? Is that reporter someone that I trust? We've read a lot of Bill Gertz's stuff, and we know him to be a reputable journalist and trustworthy journalist, and so we tend to put a lot of credibility, even though he's not naming his sources.
That's true. It's a marketplace of ideas and information and reporting out there, and you earn a reputation based on your product and how careful it is and how accurate it is over time.
But journalists really cannot do their jobs. Journalists would not be able to do their jobs if they had to name every source. That's a reality in the world. Okay, so really the arbiter is the consumer.
Yes. Which, that's what I'm saying, they're in a reciprocal relationship. So if you have consumers whose mind, body are disunited, right? they're looking for rationalizations, right? Then the way they're receiving this information, okay, is they're going to consume CNN if they're addicted to rationalizations for their political ideology, right? So in the end, it's the quality of the citizens. It's in the end, it's the quality of the citizens, which is why the communists got in front of this issue and said, we're going to infiltrate Hollywood, institutes of higher learning, and we're going to keep the American public so dumb that they can't sort these things out.
And so this is why, yesterday we went through this article in the World Tribune on how the 2016 presidential election basically destroyed American journalism. And it's not going to recover probably for decades because now New York Times went completely off the reservation. And this article yesterday talked about how Abe Rosenthal, the previous boss of the New York Times, was really, really strict in keeping reporters' opinions out of news articles and of keeping, making sure that the system with unnamed sources worked correctly as it was supposed to. But now everything goes, and reporters have put their opinions into articles all the time, especially during the 2016 election.
You have Antifa normalizing the idea that being irrational is okay and profitable, okay, and beneficial. So that's they are trying to massage. Okay, it's a reciprocal relationship between the journalism and the dumbed down public. Okay, so once the public thinks it's just not beneficial to actually be tedious and smart anymore, right? Let me join those Antifa because they look like the majority. Okay, let me let my hair down and stop, bitching about like these little details that when I used to pretend to be intellectual I would care about. So they're literally still trying to dumb down the population by making Antifa look like they're pulling these people out of insane asylums and parading them around like they're normal people. Okay?
Just before we go to break, I want to remind people that what we read yesterday, that the chief of political columnist of the New York Post said in a recent speech that the behavior of much of the media during the 2016 election was, but especially the New York Times, was a disgrace. And he said, I don't believe it will ever recover the public trust it squandered. So the New York Times is finished. It's on its way out, and we saw today how they're restructuring. They're cutting down their staff, but it also in this report said that we have chaos right now in journalism, and so what people need to do is support the journalists and the media that they feel good with, feel comfortable about, and they like.
I have a question for you then.
Okay.
Do you believe that that this is driven by the public outcry saying you better bring back good journalistic standards, or is it a ploy?
Well, there's a free market here. There's I don't know how free it is. There's degrees of freedom, but there is a free market in operation here, and so I think we get the media that we ask for, the media that we deserve, and so during the election, for example, if more people had basically the media bring together advertisers and readers. So the people that can pressure media are either advertisers can pressure them or readers can pressure them. And right now, readers, especially readers, are pressuring the New York Times and other similar outlets because, as he says, the New York Times has squandered the public trust, and it's up to the readers to decide whether they give that trust back, and probably they will put their trust elsewhere, in other publications, and so
especially the left. The left will just go to other leftists.
Well, the right also. The right is putting their trust in places like Breitbart News and in other places. And there are many channels on YouTube and some very, very good news channels on YouTube. I support one myself that specializes in China, and I'm supporting with my money. I subscribe to them, even though I could watch it for free. But I subscribe to them because I want them to be able to continue giving me the kind of information that they're doing now.
Value to you.
And I think that's what's going to give rise to new journalistic outlets in the 21st century.
Okay.
And if Father wanted to do that, he founded the Washington Times and other media outlets because he was hoping that they would be that kind of alternative media. But of course now they are all under the Han Mother and Satan's dominion, so that's not working out. But so in the wake of that, these other sort of many smaller outlets are coming up, and eventually the free market will give rise to.
So okay. There's this possibility that.
Misha, it doesn't look like we're going to take a break.
There's this possibility that the New York Times went too far. Right?
Well, possibility, yeah. I think there's a possibility that the sun is shining today.
Yeah, great. So then they go, okay, we got to throw them under. The rest of the leftist news says that's an embarrassment because he makes us look bad. So we got to throw him under the bus. So that's actually not driven by the population. That's driven by how embarrassed the rest of the leftist media are. That he was so stupid that the New York Times let himself be exposed. We all know we're in this game of deceiving people, but he made us look like we are. So we have to look like we're cheerleading their demise. You see what I'm saying?
I understand.
That's why I'm not exactly believing it, because I would like to think that the public being awake is actually the driving force. That would be great.
Well, things like Breitbart News coming more and more into the mainstream now is the public driving it, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, well, I think you make a good point.
And the demise of a CNN as well. Fewer and fewer people are watching CNN.
So, yeah.
And they can't stand it.
They say the proof is in the pudding. If the pudding tastes bad, people will go shop for different pudding somewhere else. And as more and more the public can be enlightened to the falsity and fakeness, and some of it is so brazen that it's obvious.
All right, let's take a break before we start our final segment. Okay, we'll take a break now and come back in a minute with our going through the headlines very quickly as we finish up this morning.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 24th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, the second fifth month, the first day. Just as we finish up, go through the other headlines in the news. A bomber planning to attack Mecca's Grand Mosque blows himself up, according to Saudi Arabian officials. They foiled a suicide attack on the Grand Mosque in the Muslims' holy city of Mecca, cornering the would-be attacker in an apartment where he blew himself up, the Interior Ministry said. In a statement read on state television, the ministry said that 3 cells had planned the attack on worshippers and security forces at the mosque as the Muslim holy month of Ramadan nears its climax. The trapped would-be suicide bomber exchanged fire with the security forces, then set off explosives when he was surrounded in a house in the central Mecca neighborhood near the mosque that had been used as the base for the attack. The ministry said the building collapsed, injuring 6 foreigners and 5 members of the security forces. Earlier in the day, security forces had shot dead a wanted man at another suspected Islamist militant hideout in Mecca's another neighborhood. The ministry also said a 3rd cell had been broken up in the Red Sea city of Jeddah, but gave no further details. 5 suspected militants, including a woman, were arrested. It said the month of fasting ends with the Eid al-Fitr holiday expected to be on Sunday. The Saudi monarchs usually spend the last 10 days of Ramadan in Mecca. It was not immediately clear who was behind the plot to attack the mosque, but the Islamic State group, which wants to establish a theocratic caliphate ruled according to strict Islamic law, had in the past carried out attacks in the kingdom. So, looks like Ramadan is coming to a close for this year, and well, I'm sure that the attacks will continue, but at least it doesn't have that extra force of the Ramadan month. TSA agent caught stealing cash from luggage. My question is, why would anyone put cash in their luggage? I don't know how much cash it was. Maybe someone was carrying, I don't know. But anyway, don't put cash in your luggage. Don't check, don't put your passport, don't put your cash, don't put your ticket in your luggage when you check it, all right? Her turn, referring to Loretta Lynch, of course, being investigated now. China claims world's most powerful submarine detector. Landslide buries a village in China. Outrage after police spokesman caught playing video game while talking fatal shooting. Let's be sensitive, folks. A SWAT raid at the villages uncovers possible golf cart chop shop. I have to read this. I have no idea why this would make the news. A golf cart chop shop. Is that profitable?
A couple of weekends ago, we went to Putnam Island off the coast of, in Lake Erie, near Cleveland, and there are hundreds of golf carts there. People get around that island on golf carts. I saw some with chrome wheels. I mean, there's some that are really elaborate, and I assume pretty expensive.
Well, unfortunately,
so there must be a business in golf carts.
Drudge links to the wrong article on that headline, so that will remain a mystery. Prada paperclip selling for $185.
Prada
paperclip.
The devil wears Prada.
Yeah, and uses paperclips apparently. 2020 Zuck likes Iowa. I guess that's Zuckerberg. Update health bill sick. We went through the health bill situation. Law, women can't revoke consent to sex once underway.
Oh, she can't call it rape while it's happening?
Yeah, you can't say yes and then while you're in the act say no. I'll change your mind in the act. I don't know. I think people should have.
I heard some women were like,
I don't like that.
If you don't put out well, they'll call it rape. Like if you don't make her scratch the walls, then she's gonna call the cops.
Let's move on. Okay. I disagree with that law. Let's move on. Family picking up dog's ashes, handed frozen corpse. Dozens of parents feed kids pet food after store. Scooby snack confusion.
Let's talk about the dogs.
Okay, we won't talk about the dogs. Coffee-seeking 81-year-old leads police on low-speed chase. Let's talk about the dogs. Apparently this happened in New Zealand. More parents have admitted mistakenly trying to feed their children dog food after a pet snack pack featuring a well-known kids cartoon was put next to chips in a supermarket. The store owners have apologized after dozens of horrified parents have said they bought the Scooby snacks for their youngsters from the Wang Nahul Pack and Save this week to eat at school and kindergarten. They were shocked to discover the 30-gram individual carob snack treats were never intended for human consumption, but were animal snacks. Notices have gone up around the preschools in this city, and staff are checking the lunch boxes to make sure children aren't eating the wrong food. Come on.
Well, that's what they're trying to do anyway. They're using the dogs. This is Dinovite commercial. They make this stuff sound so good. Then they made Dinovite for cats, right? They're like, oh, your dog's skin problems, his energy problems. I'm like, I know too many human beings that have those exact same problems, right? And then they expanded it to cats. And you know, everybody's sitting there thinking, when are they gonna expand the formula for humans? Because
We're running out of time. And here we got the Chop Shop article up finally. An early morning raid broke the relative quiet of a large Florida retirement community that turned up drugs, weapons, and in its stinkly forward twist, evidence of a golf cart chop shop. Sumter County deputies said undercover deputies had bought drugs at the residence 3 different times, according to the villagenews.com. Deputies also said the residence also had spurred multiple complaints from neighbors after theft of several golf carts. I guess this is one of the communities that you were talking about.
Yeah.
If that's the only way you can get around, I guess, yeah.
And there's money where there's need and a market. There's money, there's opportunity there for lots of businesses, including chop shops.
Okay, I guess we'll have to have more respect for golf carts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. And shall we look at this coffee-seeking 81-year-old on a low-speed chase? That might be a good one to end with. The Dallas News, the Denton police officer rapped on the elderly driver's Jeep, telling her to roll down the window and unlock the door. But Nancy Strader, who, honest to God, just wanted to get a cup of coffee, had other ideas. Why should I stop when I've done nothing? The 81-year-old would say later, according to a body cam video. Come on. Why should I stop? So despite the officer's protestations, Strader simply drove away, with police in pursuit, with speeds reaching as much as 25 miles per hour.
Wow. 25?
Yes.
That's fast.
She's my type of driver. As far as slow-speed police chases involving white multi-purpose vehicles go, Thursday's early morning pursuit will not go down as the most famous, but it might be the most improbable. Oh yes, OJ, we will not forget you. I was just out riding around, Strader would tell the news station. So it keeps popping up with new advertising. So anyway, that's it. She led the police on a low-speed chase, presumably to her favorite coffee outlet. All is well. All right. Thank you for joining us this morning for the King's Report. And I'll thank my guests, Jamal Johnson and Bill Brunhofer. And we hope that you have a wonderful day today, wherever you are. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.
You cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujahs be multiplied. love is like radiant diamond bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will